Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of the Pewter Report podcast. It is a Wednesday edition of the show, and we are talking about the playoffs. I know it's very far in the distance, but if you're a Bucs fan, you have the longest streak in the NFC of your team reaching the postseason. Kind of crazy to believe, but can they do it again for a fifth year in a row? We're going to talk all about that and the biggest storylines heading into this season for the Bucs. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joining with me today is a very special guest. You can see him and hear him on the Pat and Aaron Show, weekdays, Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 a.m. We are very lucky to be joined by Aaron Jacobson from WDAE. Aaron, thank you so much for joining the show this afternoon. How you doing?
Doing great. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough. You've been kind to have me on your show before, and I'm super grateful that you've had me on. So the least I could do is bring you on the Pewter Report podcast. Obviously, a lot of people are familiar with you in the Pat and Aaron Show. Is it a little bit different going back to being in the afternoon? Because you're usually on the mornings, but you guys had your start in the afternoon as well.
Listen, I took a little nap. I got a cup of coffee. So we're talking Bucs football, baby. It's like one of the weird parts of, we're getting into summer. The Rays aren't playing great baseball. You can see my Stammer jersey. The Lightning are out of it. So right now, it's like I was talking about with Pat this morning on the show. It's like we're trying to figure out, is it the appetizer? Are OTAs the appetizer? Is it just getting seated at the table?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of just you're having the bread at the moment, and that's a little bit different too. Oh, we lost him for a second. Oh, he's back. Cool. I was saying it's a little bit like when you're at the restaurant when you first get the bread, because some restaurants the bread, it's amazing. You got to have it. Texas Roadhouse, something like that. The bread is fantastic. You almost look forward to it, and that's kind of like when you're seeing Jalen McMillan and Bucky Irving and hey, $100 million man Baker Mayfield. But at the same time, it's like, we haven't even gotten to the appetizer. Like, they're not even in pads just yet. But it's certainly, anytime football is in our lives, it's in a very exciting time. And I want to talk about plenty of Buccaneers football with you. Before we get into the Bucs, though, just one quick question. I'm such a big fan of your show, the Pat and Aaron Show, outside of just being on it. But I think what I enjoy the most about it is when I listen to you and Pat interact and go about each segment. The reason why I like it the most is that it feels so much as if I'm just talking to my buddies, like if we're at the bar or, some inside jokes and things like that. Is that how you feel when you and Pat are kind of interacting? Did that take time to grow, or is it just something where you guys hit it off right away?
It's a good question, because Pat and I are unique in a way where we really are. We're best friends. Like, how we annoy each other. We're like brothers. Yeah. We say we're a married couple. But no, that's why we have guys. When we have guys like you on, it's because you mesh with the show in that way. Like, we want to bring on guests, friends of the show, build relationships with people in the show that they can jump right in, because Pat and I do have that relationship. We totally feel it. It wasn't always like that when we started our podcast 10 years ago now, which is crazy.
Wow.
We were just two guys talking sports. We like talking sports. We didn't really know each other that well, but as we grew, we understood that, we're very similar in a lot of ways. So I'm glad it comes across that way on the air. I really appreciate you saying that, because we're just best friends hanging out, and every day, we're very lucky to be able to talk sports, talk Tampa Bay sports in a great market, and just be friends, be guys just hanging out on the couch.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've tried to implement a little bit of that with the Pewter Report podcast. Obviously, you guys got the Goon Squad. We got the Pewter People. We call it with our fan bases. There's a lot of course, intersecting of both. But let's talk about the Buccaneers now as we fast forward to the 2024 season. Obviously, the big storyline in the offseason was re-signing a lot of guys, whether it was Mike Evans, Levante David. But I think one of the biggest ones, of course, was Baker Mayfield getting that 3-year, over $100 million contract. Aaron, I just want to get your thoughts about, there's a lot of discussion with Baker. Did he deserve it? Are they overpaying for him? But I think the biggest question with Baker is, can he do it again in year 2? Because now there's more tape on him within the realm of playing for the Buccaneers. Obviously, he's been in the league for a while. But what did you think of the signing? And can Baker kind of repeat what he did in a, renaissance or resurgence year for him?
I think that's the big question, and that's the big question for all of us: is can he do it again? Was he? The market. Like, that's the value of a quarterback. When you look at Daniel Jones and the contract that he got with the Giants, you had to expect that Baker was going to get a decent amount of money. And I think when we saw what Kirk Cousins got in the division with the Falcons, I think it looks kind of like a steal right now for a guy who has been in a Buccaneer uniform, has proven it for, albeit for 1 year in a Buccaneer uniform, a guy who's dealt with offensive coordinator changes for his entire career, head coaches changes. When we thought he was going to have a solidified offensive coordinator in Dave Canales here, he gets a head coaching job in the division. So Baker's got to start all over with that one. I love Baker. Won me over last year. I was one of those guys who was like, can Baker be the guy to help be that, whatever it is, the bridge quarterback, the next guy after Tom Brady? He's won me over because of his personality, his chutzpah, his moxie on the field. And I love it. Todd Bowles loved moxie. Moxie it epitomizes what Baker Mayfield is. So I don't know what else the Buccaneers could have done. What was it going to be? Listen, I like Kyle Trask, and we love what we saw. It's part of the. But seriously, was it going to be anybody but Baker Mayfield? No, it couldn't. You won a division with him.
Absolutely. And I like what you said about the Daniel Jones contract, because I think that's where the scariness of, hey, the guy had a good to okay year, kind of in Daniel Jones' situation, where the Giants made it to the playoffs. And then you saw what happened last season. I think injuries kind of played a part into it. But that's why I like this contract with Baker, because the Bucs can actually get out of it after 2 seasons where, they will have to pay him early on, a big chunk of money this season and next season. But unless it goes like abysmally terrible, it's not really going to hurt the Bucs crazy long term, which I really like about it. And the part about ingratiating himself, it's one of those things where, he signs to the Bucs and I'm thinking, all right, from what we've seen about Baker, chip on his shoulder, but a little bit of brash. With the exception of Ndamukong Suh, I don't think I could have been more wrong about a player coming into the Buccaneers. Not about like whether or not he'll fail or be successful, but just the kind of attitude and personality this guy has. Because when Ndamukong Suh came to the Bucs, I was like, oh my God, this is the guy that wants to rip your head off and is stomping on the offensive linemen and things like that. And then he comes to the Bucs and he's like very soft spoken. Obviously, we've learned more about him. He's a genius. Like, next to Warren Buffett, he's like the most successful and smartest businessman that you can find. It was the same thing with Baker Mayfield. I mean, he comes in, it's like inside jokes. He's boys with Tristan Wirfs. And I think that was the best way to help move along this group that, the national public was all saying, oh, the Bucs aren't going to do anything. They don't have Tom Brady anymore. They had a better season with Baker Mayfield this year than they did in Tom Brady's last season.
I'm a big camaraderie guy. I really believe, and I understand these guys are professional athletes, but we all remember playing sports, competitive sports as kids.
Yeah.
Being a part of a team, a successful team where you're growing, where you're bonding, that means him to jump in there like he did and bond with the team, the offensive line. You can go down the street and see Baker Mayfield hanging out, outside in Tampa Bay. Yeah. Love Tom Brady. He's a superstar celebrity. Rightfully so. He wasn't just walking around Tampa Bay. You can go be playing pickleball down the street and you can run into Baker Mayfield. Like, he just feels like he is Tampa Bay now. And I personally love that. And I think it goes a long way. He's hanging out with his babies, with him and Tristan Wirfs doing baby time, daddy time together. I mean, they're a unit.
They absolutely are. And I was thinking about that when Brady was still with the Bucs. Like, I was at the mall one day and I was thinking, like, Tom Brady can't just go to the mall. Like, he would be mobbed. And then Baker,
the mall goes to Tom Brady.
Right, the mall goes to Tom Brady. That's a great point. And then Baker, it's like he didn't even take a snap yet with the Bucs last season, and he's at Lightning playoff games. He's at a Rays game, like signing a kid's shirt and things like that. So it's one thing to ingratiate yourself with the team, but it's another to do it with the city. And he's done that almost right away. He's done it big time, and obviously everyone's pretty happy to have him back. I want to stick with quarterbacks, but talk about a quarterback not on the Buccaneers, but in the NFC South with Kirk Cousins. Michael Penix stuff aside, How much of a threat is Kirk Cousins and the Falcons to the Buccaneers this season in terms of course, who's going to win the NFC South?
It's hard to tell. What's he going to come back and be? You're with a new team. Now, I want to make the argument it's hard to adjust to being with a new team. He's done it before and successfully. And Baker Mayfield just did it with the Buccaneers and won a division. So and then we've seen, Matt Stafford win a Super Bowl with his first season. Tom Brady did it with the Bucs first season. Yeah. So I don't want to put too much stock into that, but the injury is a big concern. The organization isn't great, but I do love the hire in Raheem Morris. I think it's a very good hire. I think I love him, so I hope he's learned his lessons from here. But I think it's going to be a tall task for Kirk Cousins. Everyone's coronating the Atlanta Falcons in this division already, and I would say not so fast because you got to go dethrone the champions. And for 3 straight years now, the Buccaneers have been the champions. Yeah,
I believe it was this man that once said, "If you want to be the man, you got to beat the man." And
perfect timing. Very good.
Yeah. Thank you. I learned from the best. And I'm in full agreement with you because the first thing I think of is, hasn't everyone learned their lesson from, I don't know, a year ago when this was the same case where it was, oh my God, the Saints got Derek Carr. They are in the driver's seat to win the NFC South. The Bucs don't have Tom Brady, Baker Mayfield. We know everything that just happened. Didn't everybody learn their lesson from a year ago that you can't anoint a champion of the division until you kind of see it happen on the field versus on paper? I mean, Derek Carr looked lost at times with the Saints, and the Saints gave him that mega contract. Baker was on a $4 million deal at the time. The reason why I almost feel better about the Bucs this year than I did a season ago, and obviously Baker's been here, he's going to have the camaraderie with guys like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. But the thing I keep coming back to, whether it's Atlanta, the Bucs, who's going to win the division, you make some great points about, Stafford did it with the Rams, Brady obviously did it with the Buccaneers. But we also got to remember, Kirk Cousins is coming off of a serious Achilles injury, which, it's going to be a weird arms race between Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers, who recovers the best from that Achilles injury. But he's coming to a Falcons team, very talented. Don't get me wrong. Pitts is great at tight end. London's nice at receiver. Bijan Robinson. But it's going to take a while for that team to get acclimated. So I think it helps the Bucs that the Bucs play Atlanta twice in October, which, as an NFL fan, I think is crazy that you don't have these teams playing in November or December. But are you telling me that Kirk Cousins is just going to be great right away with a Falcons team where he's coming off of a serious injury? And also, skill position-wise, wide receiver specifically, Kirk Cousins was just playing with Justin Jefferson, the best wide receiver in the NFL. Are we really saying that Kirk Cousins is going to a much better team in Atlanta now than he was already with in Minnesota?
No, I think he goes to a much more competitive division. We can't argue that this division is much. It's an easy out. What am I saying? It's an easy out. The Buccaneers have been able to get that easy out. Sure. So I agree with you. We have to be careful and learn last year. But I think if you look at this roster, this Atlanta Falcons roster, Matt, they've got weapons on offense. They just did not know or want to utilize those weapons for some weird reason to the benefit of all of us here in Tampa Bay. They could not figure out how to properly utilize those weapons on offense. I think the hope is that a veteran like Kirk Cousins comes in, and you're absolutely right. Who knows what he's going to be with that Achilles injury, recovering from that still. But with those weapons, Kirk Cousins gives them a way better chance than what they were throwing out there at quarterback last year. Yeah. So, and I think with a new coaching staff, we know that defense with Raheem Morris. I think that, that's something if there's any team to look out for in this division, it's going to be the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, I think without question, they are the 1-2 in this division in terms of rankings of who's going to win. And I understand, clearly the Falcons are a better team now with Kirk Cousins than they were a year ago. So I don't think it's the biggest deal that the Falcons are clearly the favorite. I actually think that's great if you want to bet on the Bucs, get a lot more value on them to win the division. Real quick, what are your thoughts about the Saints heading into this?
But before we get to that, I didn't even mention and I know they drafted Michael Penix.
I know. Tampa legend. The craziest part, I get it because we've seen the route of okay, the Packers had Rodgers, they went with Jordan Love. The Chiefs traded up for Mahomes with Alex Smith. But it wasn't after just signing a quarterback for over $100 million in the biggest move in the offseason. It's crazy that the Falcons are going to be in a spot where they have to decide to pick up the fifth-year deal on a first-round pick with Michael Penix the same year it's the last season of Kirk Cousins. Makes no sense at all.
Doesn't help them out. Like, if they could have gotten a pick, and that's a valuable pick, and
Yeah.
you know this, where that could have helped them, put them, just something like that could have put them over the top in the division. I think they whiffed on that pick. I like Michael Penix a lot.
Me too. I'm a lefty. I'm biased towards lefties. I like to see lefties do well in football at any level. And that was one of the most shocking things we've seen in the draft since, I don't know. The first thing that came to mind was the Laramie Tunsil situation. And it's very apples to oranges. But, man, like, that was one of those things where the whole world was kind of mocking the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta hadn't been mocked like that since the whole 28-3 debacle.
Yeah, you're right. And if Laramie Tunsil, if that happened today, he doesn't fall at all.
No, not at all. Maybe one spot because, like, the team that wanted to draft him are stuffy losers. But, yeah, I agree with that. Real quick about the Saints. What are your thoughts about them heading into this year?
I think they're in trouble because of the cap position that they're in. I mean, if you think about it with Derek Carr, what they have done to themselves is they put themselves in a situation where they really should be rebuilding, but they're like kind of stuck, and they're stuck in mediocre. And I think their mediocre is good enough to be better than the Panthers, but their mediocre is going to be exactly what the Saints are. I think. You there, Matt?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think they're going to be around a 500 team, maybe a little less. Maybe, they're what they are. I don't think they did a lot to improve.
Yeah, the Saints are so odd to me because they're kind of like that cockroach that survives an apocalypse and just won't die and just won't go away. Because I feel like we've said this for the last 2 off seasons. Oh, like their defense is aging and they have no money on the cap. And then, bam, they signed Derek Carr. And while I think a lot of us think that that's not a good move, they were still, if the Bucs lose the last week of the season, the Saints are going to the playoffs, and the Bucs aren't. So they have this weird way of just kind of like hanging around. And I don't necessarily, I know how they do it at times, but it just still boggles my mind that they're able to, kind of stay in the running with the Bucs. Let's get back to
it's defense. Even if the defense is aging, like they're always going to have like a defense that hangs around, especially with the way their head coach is with Dennis Allen. Like it's the way their team is going to be. So that's why this division, except for the Panthers, division, like it's not the worst division. That's except for the Panthers. They're just like a bunch of mediocre teams, or Bucs a little bit above mediocre last year. How you look at it, obviously with Tom Brady above mediocre, but kind of been that division for a while now.
When you look at the Bucs roster, offense and the defense, which side do you feel more comfortable about heading into the 2024 season?
What a really good question. Oh man.
Thank you.
It's a tough question. I think I feel more confident with the defense just because of the pieces that we have. I mean, absolute rock stars on defense. Talk about what Levante David is still able to do. Massive signing of Antoine Winfield Jr., Vita Vea, which we had to do. Vita Vea, what he can do. Jordan Whitehead, bringing him back. Something that, maybe we shouldn't have let Jordan Whitehead go.
Yeah.
Jordan Whitehead and Antoine Winfield Jr. Back together. So I really feel strongly about this defense. Jamel Dean, I know the loss of Carlton Davis, but Carlton Davis is a guy who is getting injured. And as far as the money is concerned, these guys, they're smart with the cap, what they do in the front office. So they understood what they had to do. I think guys are going to step up into that role. I feel pretty good about the defense going into this year.
Yeah, I know it's better for radio and podcasts when the people on it kind of disagree with each other. But my initial thought was defense is I feel better about as well, because I think the biggest question for the Bucs before, really free agency and the draft was What do they do on the back end at safety outside of Antoine Winfield Jr.? Obviously, he's a sure thing. And how do the Bucs get better at the pass rush in terms of building a 4-man front that can just get after the quarterback versus Todd Bowles sending a crazy amount of blitzes? And, you bring back Jordan Whitehead, where when he was initially with the Bucs, no, he was more of a run-stopping safety. That was kind of what Jordan Whitehead did. Then he goes to the Jets, had 4 interceptions last season. I think he had two seasons before that, his first year with the Jets. So Jordan Whitehead only got better in coverage-wise, which will help the Buccaneers. It's almost like a UFC fighter where it's like, hey, he's really good at stand-up, but he's got to get better at jiu-jitsu. So he goes to a different camp for a couple of months and then comes back. I feel like that happened with Jordan Whitehead.
I like that.
I love the Tyke Smith pick. I think he's going to be a guy that hits the ground running and gets it going. Devin White leaving an inside linebacker. They already replaced him before the season ended, last year with KJ Britt. So I think they'll be able to fill that. But outside linebacker, I think, was a big question. Shaq, unfortunately, wasn't really getting it done as he kind of came back from the injury and obviously a huge personal tragedy. So there needs to be that void filled outside of Yaya Diaby. And sure, they could have gone into the season saying, all right, well, you got Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, who's kind of been up and down, can't really finish. You got Anthony Nelson, who's probably better suited as a third-string outside linebacker than a starter. And we got these 2 other young guys, Jose Ramirez, Marquise Watts. But the Bucs go, no, we're not satisfied. We're going to go out and get Randy Gregory, who's a veteran presence, might have a little bit juice left. And then Chris Braswell in the second round, that's a lot of draft capital in a guy to go and try to make a difference on this team at outside linebacker. So I think really any questions you had about the Buccaneers defense was answered with guys like Whitehead, with drafting Braswell. And, if last year was a quote-unquote down year for the Bucs because they didn't have as many interceptions and turnovers and not as many sacks, they were still top 10 in the league in sacks. I think the Bucs defense is going to be, ruling with an iron fist this year. They're coming back with a vengeance.
Yeah, look out for Yaya Diaby. I mean, look out for Kalijah Cansey. Guys like this taking another leap, another year. They're young on both sides of the ball on the line. They're young and they're up and coming. So I feel actually confident, if there's anything with the offense that I need to see, why I didn't answer with the offense, I need to see the offensive line as a unit. But if they can work out as a unit, a young unit, I think that offensive line is going to be together for a long time. But you look at those young guys on defense, Yaya Diaby, I think he's going to take a massive step this year.
Yeah, Yaya in year 2, Kalijah Cansey obviously is very young. Zion McCollum getting a first time to be a full-time starter, even though he started half the season last year anyway. So yeah, it's something to look out for. Also, another thing to look out for, of course, is Celsius Energy Drinks, the official energy drink of the Pewter Report podcast. We always keep the vibes high on this show. And of course, they got some great vibe flavors, whether it's the Galaxy vibe, Astro, Cosmic. I'm a personal huge fan of the Arctic vibe. That's my favorite flavor of Celsius. There's no sugar. It's a great substitute for the coffee drinkers out there if you want to get a good start to your morning. I know when I was lucky enough to co-host the Pat and Aaron show during training camp, when you guys were live at the Bucs facility, started my day with the Celsius. So if you need to know where to find a Celsius energy drink, go to the Celsius website, and they got a store locator over there. You punch in your address. It'll tell you the closest location where you could pick one up. Might be a Walmart, health and fitness store, 7-Eleven, or it might just be your bodega. And once you keep going to your bodega and you love Celsius and you want more and you want to get it in bulk, you can get it in bulk. Just go over to Amazon. Get the variety pack because variety is the spice of life. You heard me mention all these great flavors of Celsius, so why not try as many as you can? Go to Amazon, do the subscribe and save. You can have it sent to your place of residence whenever you want. Could be a week, month, quarterly, yearly. You're in charge. You're the captain now. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. Aaron, you've been very gracious with your time. We're going to get you out of here soon, but you started talking about the offense, so I kind of want to end with the offense as well. I think this group obviously has a lot of great potential. We started the show talking about Baker Mayfield and the fact you brought up the fact that he's had a different offensive coordinator every single year in his career, and that continues now with Liam Cohen coming in. We're going to see a lot more motion. I think we're going to see an improved running game. I do worry about that offensive line, man, because it's a lot of, and this was the case last year as well, because it was like, hey, if Luke Gedeke can do this, the offensive line will be better. And Luke Gedeke did improve. He did become, an anchor on that side. The Bucs still had the worst rushing game in the league for 2 years in a row. Now it's like, oh, Cody Mauch, if he can step his game up, and if Graham Barton, I feel like there's too many ifs going on with the offensive line, but everywhere else, there's great talent. There's things to love about this group, and yet you're only as strong as your weakest link.
Yeah, I think Rachaad White, let's start with him. Like, I think he grew last year. I think it wasn't all on him when I look back, and I gave him a lot of grief personally at the beginning of the season. I think it was both the offensive line not creating holes for him and him needing to learn how to, kind of get after it and hit those holes right away. And I think Rachaad White grew a lot last year as a running back. I think Luke Gedeke grew a lot on the right side. Obviously, Tristan Wirfs doing what he had to do, transitioning over the left side and just being spectacular. I think Cody Mauch, I saw you tweet it out. He's looking big, looking juicy. So, there are a lot of ifs. But we know the offensive line they work as a cohesive unit. So you just have to hope. I think the anchor, it's all about, when did things start to turn? When Ryan Jensen went down.
Yeah.
And having a strong center, having a smart center, having a tough center is really, really important. And I don't want to put too much pressure on a rookie, but when you're drafted in the first round and you're a smart guy coming out of Duke and you have the expectations, I would expect him to come out and be able to produce, and for this line not to be perfect at first, but I do expect some growth, and I expect by the end of the year that it's not one of those weak links that we're talking about, like we did last year with them.
Yeah, Graham Barton was getting comparisons to Ali Marpet, and I like that Graham Barton was like, I haven't even played a snap yet in the NFL. Like, let's calm down with those comparisons. But if he's anything like Ali Marpet, obviously that is a home run slam dunk for the Buccaneers. So they hope that'll happen. Question about the wide receivers for you. You see the man right there, Mike Evans. Are we getting another 1,000-yard season from Mike Evans? Is he going to break that record and get closer to another one?
I'd be kind of an idiot to say that he wouldn't get 1,000 at this point. Like he just wakes up, he puts a jersey on, and he gets 1,000 yards no matter what. He just finds a way to get it done. And last year, one of his best seasons, incredible with all the seasons he's had with just so much success. For my book, a first ballot Hall of Famer, absolute Hall of Famer, no doubt about it. Now the question is he first ballot? I think another 1,000-yard season gets him closer to solidifying that first ballot status. But yeah, why not? Like, his connection with him and Baker Mayfield. One more year, one more season, it's going to be better than last year, I would assume. So Mike, like I said, he eats breakfast, he eats lunch, he eats dinner, and then he gets 1,000 yards.
Yeah, I see no signs of Mike Evans slowing down. I would love Mike Evans. I hope one day he does like an autobiography or something, because I always go back to like thinking about all the quarterbacks that Mike Evans has worked with in his career. Such polarizing figures. Johnny Manziel, Jameis Winston, Tom Brady, now Baker Mayfield. Of course, shout out to Mike Glennon as well. Like all the quarterbacks Mike has worked with to get to 1,000 yards, or Johnny in college football. I'm sure he's got some behind the scenes stories that I would love to hear someday. But also part of the reason why I brought up Mike Evans and his 1,000 yards is my favorite bet that I made last season before the NFL season began. The over-under on receiving yards for Mike Evans was 875. I laughed in the face of Las Vegas and every single betting app that I could find about taking the over on Mike Evans receiving yards.
I would have put my whole life on that. Is it out for this season? Do we know?
No, I haven't seen any of like the player props really. It's been a lot of just like team total over-unders. So the Bucs like over-under is 8.5 wins, and the Bucs to make the playoffs, it's 8.5, and the higher than 8.5 wins for the Bucs. The payout is -150. So if you're not a big gambling fan, -150 means if you bet $150, you would win $100. It's not that good of a payout compared to like what it would be last season. But that was one of my favorite. I'll always remember that bet.
Can I ask you?
Over. Yeah,
Rachaad White this year over 1,000 yards.
See, that's a tough one because it's like, how are they going to use Bucky Irving?
Yeah.
Because if Bucky Irving wasn't on this team and it was Chase Edmonds and pretty much everybody from last season, I would say, yeah, definitely, because he was 10 yards away in the worst running offense in the league. But with Bucky Irving, if they start to do a little bit by committee, the way that like Liam Cohen kind of did it with the Rams, and obviously he had a main guy at Kentucky, but right now I would kind of say under just because Bucky Irving could play so much into the mix. So
you love Bucky.
Every time Bucky scores a touchdown this year, I'm posting a Bucky picture or something like that.
Yes.
Hey, Trevor Sikkema loves him. Trevor Sikkema obviously knows a ton about the draft and everything like that. So if he's good in Trevor Sikkema's book, he's good in my book as well. Is there any bets, anything you've been looking at for the Bucs kind of heading into the season? I know it's very early, but I just can't wait for football, for the whole slate and everything like that.
Unless somebody gives me something good, I'm not a great futures gambler. I'll say what I like, but like I'm so antsy and I want the money now. So I don't like to wait an entire season for that payout. It's like, what parlay can I do tonight that's going to be in 6 hours?
I'm in agreement with you. I've actually taken a lot of futures like in other sports right now. But it is tough waiting. Like I'm still waiting for Ellie De La Cruz. He's 8 more stolen bases away from hitting his over.
Wow.
So I'm very excited about the over-under was 39.5 stolen bases for Ellie De La Cruz. He's at 31 right now. It's not even June.
It's not June.
Yeah.
Enjoy yourself. That's a good one.
Right. Thank you. Also, every time I take the Rangers goalie Shesterkin over on the saves, that hits every single time. So that's a free one for.
He's been a monster. The guy's been a monster for the.
Yeah, absolutely. Aaron, one last thing for me, and again, thank you so much for joining me. You've been doing radio for a little while now. You've done a lot of interviews, a lot of shows. Anyone stand out to you as your favorite interview to talk to or have a conversation with, whether it's a Bucs player or just really anyone that in the business?
Yeah, this guy had me. He had me on. It was the end of May. His name's Matt Matera. It was an unbelievable interview we had. It was just, I loved it. No, like going on radio, this is comfortable because I know you and it's comfortable. I get sometimes when I don't know, like I said, I'm a vibes guy. I'm a camaraderie guy. So this is easy. I know you. I don't, when I go on other shows in other markets, I love it, but I'm like awkwardly nervous when I'm never nervous because I'm trying to quickly learn the personalities of the hosts while we're doing the interview, and everybody's a little different. Some guys are more tight, buttoned up. Some guys are looser like us. My hope is I can feel it out right away, and some guys I can, that like, oh, this is going to be cool. This is relaxed.
How about someone that you've interviewed or talked to?
Pete Rose was Pete Rose.
Oh my goodness.
We cold called Steve Spurrier once when he had the football league out there in Orlando.
Yep.
We just wanted to tell him that we took a vote and we're behind his team. And he was so nice about it, super cool about it. We ended up talking to him for like 20 minutes. That's always a good one. That was a good one. Barry Sanders, Super Bowl, every year for the Super Bowl. It's always like we're getting heavy hitters. Our boss, our PD does a really good job of landing some heavy hitters for us. So those are always the most fun. The Radio Rows, where we're out at like Army-Navy game.
Yes, you guys do a fantastic job over there.
Army-Navy is more fun and fulfilling than Super Bowl by far. It's not even close.
Yeah, I listen to when you guys are there, and I see you guys post everything, and it looks like a blast. Everyone says that that's a game that you have to go to, and then obviously with our armed forces there too, it's obviously super meaningful. So one day I definitely want to get to that game. I think that'd be super cool. Aaron Jacobson, you are super cool. Cannot thank you enough for joining the show this afternoon. Just real quick, if you want to plug the show, where everybody can follow you on social media and the Pat and Aaron Show, we got it at the bottom, but
yeah, you got it at the bottom. You got it. Pat and Aaron Show, 6 a.m., ending at 9 a.m., weekdays on WDAE iHeartRadio app. It's free, where we will have our friends like Matt Matera joining us. And Matt, please, let's go play golf soon. Let's go hang.
Absolutely. I've been telling Casey Hudson we got to keep playing. I said the ball is in your court, so we'll put it on Casey. But I'll just hit you up now, and we can play golf. So that'd be great. Aaron, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it, man. I'll talk to you later.
All right, later. All right, let's hear a message from our friends over at Immuni Financial.
At Amuni Financial, we help you live in the now.
Congratulations. We're so happy for you.
Thank you.
And even though the now may feel very different, you still need to plan for the future.
How's retirement treating you? Oh, just fantastic.
I know I say it all the time, but you really got to come up to Colorado.
Let's do it. All right. Yeah.
We can help you develop that plan to keep you on track, so you can still prepare for tomorrow, today. Amuni Financial. Plan ahead, stay ahead.
That's right. Immuni Financial has proudly been serving clients across the country since 1980. They can help you with a number of different ways, whether it's advisory services, legacy and retirement planning, insurance services, and sales and trading. You can also open up a college banking account as well if you have a kid that plans on going to college. You heard them mention Colorado. They do have a place in Colorado. They got spots in Tampa as well, but they got it all across the country too. So you could be in Connecticut or Texas or Oklahoma. Maybe you want to get closer to Baker Mayfield, something like that in the offseason. Make sure you go to Immuni Financial and see how they can help you. It's a free consultation, so why not? All right. Thanks again to Aaron Jacobson for joining the show. Always great having him on, talking to him. I think that might have actually been his first time on the show, but nonetheless, you can see him on the Pat and Aaron show Mondays through Friday. So thanks again to Aaron. We'll get to some comments as well and go over some recent articles over at pewterreport.com. Some of the big news today was that third-round pick Jalen McMillan signed his contract with the Buccaneers. So he is signed, sealed, delivered. He becomes the fourth Buccaneers player to be signed to the organization. It was Bucky Irving and Elijah Klein. And who was the other one? But yeah, it was Bucky Irving and Elijah Klein were the first two. And Tyke Smith as well, excuse me, the third rounder. So both third rounders have been signed. Tyke Smith was the second to last, and then Jalen McMillan. Tyke Smith went 89 with McMillan going 92nd overall. Of course, famously, the Jalen McMillan draft pick only came because of the trade for Carlton Davis. So without the deal with Carlton Davis, where the Bucs got the draft pick of the Detroit Lions, Jalen McMillan might not be with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But I know a lot of Bucs fans are happy that he is. So the Bucs just need to sign a couple of more rookies before they get to training camp. Obviously, Graham Barton and Chris Braswell and Devin Colt, the 7th round pick as well. Thank you to Jason Rodriguez. Yeah, so we got a little bit more time, so happy to get to some questions, comments, things like that before we close out the show. Jason Rodriguez says, I've been watching this video and I subscribe to you. Thank you very much, Jason Rodriguez. We really appreciate that. We got over 14,000 subscribers, trying to get to 15,000. We have a great video from Bucs OTAs the other day. It's a lot of warm-up. It's a lot of hearing the guys get after it and obviously get ready for a new season. It's a fun way, get some close-up on some guys. This one has a lot of Baker Mayfield and Jordan Whitehead in this one. So make sure you check that out. Please like and subscribe. Rich Suggs with the question says, do we know what compensatory draft picks we get for Devin White and Shaq Barrett? We do not yet. That hasn't come out. The way comp picks works is it's kind of like a math equation where the number of significant free agents you lost versus like the new free agents you signed, and you end up getting a pick from it. The Bucs had a comp pick this year for the Mike Evans free agency. So, yeah, we'll see. They might be able to get something for Devin White. Maybe Shaq Barrett as well, but we'll see how that goes because obviously the Bucs have the big signing with Jordan Whitehead. Don Hayes says, watch tape again on McMillan and Smith. Wow. Yeah. I think so. We did a Pewter Report roundtable not too long ago about who's your favorite Bucs pick. And I said Jalen McMillan at the time. And I could have said a couple of people, but I truly think I initially said it with Jalen McMillan, but I think this will be the case with Tyke Smith as well. Those two guys, I think, are really going to be the seesaw, the teetering of making this Bucs draft class good to great. And I really don't want to get ahead of myself. I fall into this problem when I watch the guys during OTAs and mini camp and all that stuff. Like, for example, Jalen McMillan goes out and makes a great play yesterday at minicamp. He's got Bryce Hall guarding him. Bryce Hall is, a solid cornerback. He was a backup on the Jets, but that's only because they had Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed. He started before Sauce Gardner got there. So we're talking about a guy that is a solid corner in this league. The Bucs view him as a starter. It's probably still going to be Zion, but the Bucs obviously like him. Jalen McMillan just beat him. Flat out, just beat him down the field on a go route and jumped over him. It wasn't like a Randy Moss, like, oh, you got Moss type of situation, but he straight up just beat him down the field and got the better of him and made a big play. He made a big play during Bucs rookie minicamp as well. And Tyke Smith had the play of Bucs rookie minicamp where he jumped up, showed that athleticism, took the ball with one hand, ended up grabbing it with two, and took an interception the other way. Tyke Smith has a great opportunity to not just learn from Antoine Winfield Jr. and Jordan Whitehead, but to play alongside them, get that nickel corner spot, that slot position. And you're just going to have dudes flying around the field, whether it's Antoine, whether it's Tyke Smith. There is so much speed and athleticism in the secondary for the Buccaneers. I mean, Zion McCollum, very, very fast. Jamel Dean, one of the fastest corners in the league. Jamel Dean is quite fast as well. You're going to have a ton of speed in that secondary for the Bucs. That's why I think it's so important. Obviously, if you want to blitz, fine. You're going to have that speed. But if you have those guys going after a ball that is rushed by the quarterback because he's got to get rid of the football because Chris Braswell and Yaya Diaby are seconds away from the quarterback and he's going to make a dumb decision because of it. I mean, if Jamel Dean can hold on to the football, I think there could be great things by the Bucs defense in that secondary this season. Really, my only concern is the linebackers because KJ Britt, we haven't seen him start for a whole season. But he's a guy that's so deliberate and calculated, and he means business that you have to imagine he'll get it together, and then he's still going to be playing under the wing of Levante David, one of the greatest linebackers of the last decade, So I really think this is going to be a great resurgence by the Buccaneers defense. And not like they were terrible last season, but you look at the Texans game, which obviously kind of exposed them a little bit. You look at that playoff game against the Lions, of course, and they got beat in some areas, but I don't know. Some of the additions that they have, I think, will clean a lot up. Jason says, Mike Evans is my favorite player, and Winfield, Vita Vea, Baker, Lamonte David. Yeah, that's a good list of favorite Bucs players. What says, our number one corner is very much in question. The depth is good, though. I think the biggest question with Jamel Dean is really just his health. If you want to say he doesn't hold on to the football, you're absolutely right. There's no argument there. But if Jamel Dean can play a 17-game season, even if he's not taking the ball away as much, it's just having him out there getting a lot of pass breakups, I think will be fine. Do you want him to make those turnovers and get those interceptions? Absolutely. But I think just having him out there will cause a big deal and be very important for the Bucs. Furu Kawab says, I honestly feel we should have kept Carlton over Dean. That's a great question. I think I'm going to pose that to Scott next week when he's back on the show. If all things were equal, because the main reason that Carlton Davis was let go or not let go, but traded, and they got Jalen McMillan because of it. The main reason that Carlton Davis is not on the Buccaneers was because he's just getting paid too much money for a guy that got injured a pretty good amount. But if everything was the same, and because the Bucs could either cut or trade Carlton Davis and not have to owe him money, where that wouldn't be the case with Jamel Dean. Now they can do that with Jamel Dean after this season. If everything was the same, though, that's a really good question. I probably would keep Carlton as well if all things are the same and the guys are going to be healthy, because Carlton took the ball away a little bit more. Carlton wasn't even known as a ball hawk. I mean, he had a lot of drops as well, and that just shows how bad that Jamel Dean had it with his drops. But yeah, I probably would have kept Carlton too. But that's not the reality that we're in. That's not the reality that the Buccaneers were in. So that's what they had to do. Other stories over at pewterreport.com. Sticking with Jalen McMillan, Todd Bowles had an interesting quote yesterday. He got asked about Jalen McMillan. He said he's very competitive, extremely smart, very heady football player. He loves using that word, heady, which is what we thought going in. I really can't wait to get the pads on him, get him acclimated, and see him play in the summer. I thought that was very interesting. They said, I really can't wait to see him get the pads on, because one, he didn't have to say it. He was just asked like kind of a general question about Jalen McMillan. But I would have thought if you were to ask Todd, hey, Todd, of all the rookies in this draft class, who are you most excited to see with the pads on? I thought it would have been a shoo-in. He would have just said Graham Barton or Elijah Klein or even Chris Braswell, because especially with the offensive line with Barton and Klein, these are two players at a position where they're not really doing much right now. It's OTAs. There's no pads on. There's no physicality. How can you get a real true grasp of what Barton and Klein are doing if they can't really hit anybody or move anyone or open up a hole for Bucky Irving and some of the other guys? I thought that easily would have been his answer. And obviously this is a hypothetical question that he was asked, because in reality, he just said, I can't wait to see Jalen McMillan with the pads on. But that just shows the athleticism and everything that Jalen McMillan has been able to do. Because even with Braswell, his main job is to rush the passer. Yes, he can drop back in coverage, and he will be asked to drop back in coverage by Todd Bowles. But even him, he's not really doing anything right now because he can't. It's not his fault. OTAs is pretty much designed for the quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends, wide receivers, and linebackers, corners, and safeties. That's pretty much what OTAs is designed for. Yes, there's film to watch. That's very, very important. I am not belittling that by any means. There's great things that can be done in meetings, but in terms of on-the-field play, there's just not much for the linemen and defensive linemen and edge rushers to do. So we shall see. Matthew Sams asking, any updates on the Wirfs contract? Nothing that I'm hearing at the moment. Obviously, they want to get something done. That's why Wirfs hasn't been at OTAs. But as I've said before, there's no reason to doubt Jason Light, Mike Greenberg, and the Bucs front office. Whether it was, Mike Evans, whether it was Baker, it really doesn't matter what the deal is. The Bucs end up getting something done. Antoine Winfield Jr. So I would not doubt. I would not worry. I would not doubt the Buccaneers brass when it comes to trying to come to an extension with Tristan Wirfs, because at the end of the day, they typically get it done. And you see in this picture, that's general manager Jason Light. That's also assistant general manager Mike Greenberg. But we're going to have assistant general manager Mike Greenberg on the show next Thursday. So not tomorrow, but next Thursday, June 6th. Assistant GM Mike Greenberg is joining the show. Very excited to have him on. He doesn't do a ton of live public interviews. I know he went on the Adam Schefter podcast, I want to say a season or two ago. But yeah, he's not on radio a ton. He doesn't do a lot of podcasts. So we're very lucky and we're very happy and excited to have Assistant General Manager Mike Greenberg joining the show tomorrow. He is a cap guru, a cap wizard, if you will. He does a lot of great things for the Buccaneers. He's very important in getting Antoine Winfield Jr. back and Baker Mayfield and all of those guys. So he's the right-hand man to Jason Light, just like John Spytek is. Obviously, Greenberg handles a lot more of the financial stuff and things like that. And we're super, super pumped to have him on. By the way, tomorrow's show, we're going to be talking more about Baker Mayfield and his rankings amongst other quarterbacks in the NFL. Was Baker Mayfield properly ranked? Is he too high? Is he too low? What's the matter with these rankings with Bucs players and specifically Baker Mayfield? So that will be the topic of tomorrow's show. Now, Baker got that big contract, so he knows he's going to be staying in Tampa Bay. Maybe he's going to buy a new house with all that money that he got. If you want to be like Baker Mayfield, if he is buying a new house and you need to buy a new house or maybe sell one, you want to work with the right people going through that process. There's nobody better to work with than Eric Gross and the Eric Gross Group. It takes a full team effort to win a football game. It takes a full team effort to win in real estate. With their strong team of vendors and a network of over 85,000 agents, the Eric Gross Group will turn your dream of buying or selling a home into a reality. Their clients are not just transactions, they are lifelong friendships. So don't let the stress of buying or selling a home keep you out of the game. Let the Eric Gross Group take the pressure off. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Eric Gross Group. Check out their website, housesinfla.com, or give them a call at 513-907-4271. That's housesinfla.com and 513-907-4271. No matter where you are on your home ownership journey, you'll feel welcome with the Eric Gross Group, the official realtor of PewterReport.com. All right, once again, appreciate Aaron Jacobson from the Pat and Aaron Show joining the show this afternoon. Let's see if we can get to one more comment. Shout out to Richie P, who says, over the years, we've seen a lot of guys come through, look good in T-shirt and shorts and not pan out. I'm thinking coach is liking what he's seeing in McMillan, but trying to hold judgment. Yeah, absolutely spot on. McMillan's been good, but we can't get ahead of ourselves. I've made that mistake before, and I'm not going to make that mistake again. I like what I've seen from McMillan, but it's still way, way, way too early to say that he's the next guy. But very eager to see what he will do. I'd also be very eager to see everybody please like and subscribe to all of Pewter Report's coverage. Our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram is at Pewter Report, and our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. So please subscribe if you like the podcast that we do 4 times a week, 3 times this week because of Memorial Day, but usually 4 times a week. If you like when we have guests like Jason Light on and Aaron Jacobson today and Mike Greenberg coming up, those are, we can only get that done when we get more subscribers and things like that. So if you like that, if you like the content we put out, Bucs live look at OTAs, all different stuff, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. So that's going to do it for us on today's show. For Aaron Jacobson, that was on before from 95.3 WDAE, the Pat and Aaron Show. Make sure you check it out. Mondays through Fridays, 6 to 9 a.m. So for Aaron Jacobson, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks so much, everybody, for watching. Happy birthday to my lovely mother, Debbie. I love you, Mom, so much. Happy birthday to you. And for everybody else at PewterReport.com, thanks, everybody, for watching. And we'll see you tomorrow for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.